Alright, this next part's pretty self-explanatory, but basically I'm getting ready to put all of the boards back into the housing. I had disconnected that disconnect switch for the auto on function from the board, so I'll make sure that gets plugged in. It's a directional connector, so obviously it tells you, if you look at the end, you see that little nub hanging off the side. That's going to make sure that you orient the connector correctly when you go to plug it back in. So I'll put this board into the chassis, not screw anything down, but basically I'm going to make sure that I can put everything back where it needs to be. The input and output jacks obviously will have nuts from the outside and washers, so that'll cinch those down. This board here was mounted separately, but there's nothing additional that needs to be done. This output jack, I'm sorry, input jack, because that's where the that's on the right hand side where the 9-volt comes in. That also had a screw mount. This one did not. This one I don't think, no, this one didn't have a screw mount. So I'll just have to make sure that that's oriented correctly, that the adapter, the DC female portion of the adapter is, or the DC input for the adapter is oriented correctly. Knobs, it doesn't matter. I did notice when I went to put it back together that these two shafts had some of that crap on them, that mystery gunk that we just cleaned off of the pedal. I used a lens wipe, actually. A lens wipe has, it's mostly alcohol, and that stuff rubbed right off. So whatever it was came off with really hot water. It also came off with a wipe, an alcohol wipe, that wasn't heated or anything like that. It was just room temperature. So who knows what that stuff was, but it's gone now. Again, I did, when I pulled the board out, I did a visual run over of the components just to make sure I didn't see any resistors that were blown or anything like that. But before I put it in, I'll do one more check. When resistors blow, lots of times you can tell that they're no good anymore, that they failed. They'll have a bulge. You know, capacitors, small capacitors, you can't tell. Big capacitors, the electrolyte capacitors will leak. They'll get nasty. They'll puff up on top, like this part of the capacitor will pop up. It's very hard to see that on smaller capacitors. Like if you got something like this, it's really hard to see if that is actually swollen, which means that it's bad. But I mean, even if it's a little bit swollen, you could probably tell, because this is very much not, you know, it's not dimpled out or anything like that. Same with this one. Obviously same with that one. So, you know, again, just a visual check. And also, before I put it back together, and you should always do this, make sure that all of your lines that are running to the board from other boards or from other components or whatever, knobs, if you have you know, a separate board that pots are located on, or input jacks or output jacks, like this stuff here. Make sure that on both sides the connectors are pushed down real good, that they're connected, because that can be a false negative, basically, as far as showing you that the pedal's not working. It's probably working just fine, but you might have a connector unplugged. So look at all that stuff. The other thing I need to remember to do, obviously, is route the 9-volt back into the little hole that leads outside the chassis in the battery compartment. So yeah, next video we'll go through just a final check before we close it up, and that'll be that.